All right, I am here in front of you taking a stand against abortion. My claim is that abortion should be illegal and it should be unaccepted in society, and I have 3 reasons why. Number 1, abortion is murder. Number 2, abortion damages the woman. And number 3, history has shown that abortion leads to the destruction of society, and I will cover all 3 of those. Number 1, abortion is murder. In order for me to prove this, or to convince you guys, I would have to prove that, number 1, the fetus is alive. Number 2, the fetus is human. And number 3, the fetus is an individual person. Well, the fetus is alive is out of the question because right from conception, the 4 cells are cells, and everyone knows that cells are alive just by biology. Number 2, the fetus is human. I don't think this is debatable either, because right from the beginning, the cells contain human DNA. And there is no other cell on the planet other than that which comes from a human that has human DNA. So the fetus is human. Number 3, the fetus is an individual person. Now this is a bit harder. Some will say that it cannot be made certain that the fetus is an individual person because during the 7th and 4th days of the fetus's life, that one fetus can split into 2 and become identical twins. So at what point did that fetus become an individual person, or at what point did it become 2 individual people? So that's a difficult point they made, but I will point out that by the 8th week, the infant has fingerprints, and these fingerprints that develop by the 8th week remain with that person until they die. Could be by the time they're old, by the time they die. Those fingerprints stay with them, and nobody else on the planet has those fingerprints, and they develop those by the 8th week. So this is an individual thing, individual person. I'm going to use God's Word to point out that this is the fetus is an individual person. Psalm 139, "For you formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you." The Lord knew you even before you were born. You were an individual person even before conception. Ephesians 1:4. He chose us in Him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before Him. Again, if you believe God's Word to be His Word, you will understand that the fetus is an individual person. Next, I'm going to go into abortion damages the woman. 57% of pregnancies following an abortion resulted in the baby being born too early. Miscarriage rate following abortion is 2 times higher than normal. Infertility occurred in 20% of patients who had an abortion. 10 times as many second trimester miscarriages in pregnancies following abortion. And this is from Human Life Issue, an issue of the Human. Abortion damages the woman, and there are many things that are made illegal in society because they're damaging to the person. For instance, we cannot marry our cousins, we cannot marry our siblings, because this would be damaging to our children. It's illegal. So why isn't it illegal to do something that damages the woman? It's damaging to the woman because for instance, in dilation and curettage, which is a form of abortion, the surgeon scrapes the wall of the uterus, cutting the baby to pieces. This damages the wall of the uterus inside of the mother's womb. Number 2, abortion is emotionally detrimental to the woman. post-abortional pain syndrome is a common side effect after a woman has an abortion. Is now considered by many scientists to mimic post-traumatic stress disorder. This includes symptoms such as nightmares, physical and mental pain, guilt, depression, anxiety, and other pathologies. And this could be caused because of the fact that women were designed to to give birth and to love their children. Anyway, I want to wrap up and say that I believe that abortion is murder, and therefore abortion should be illegal and unaccepted in society. Thank you very much.
All right, Nathan, you've got a policy claim and a value claim as part of the argument, and that's problematic. So you need to focus on the factual dispute. I think the second point in your argument is the one that has the clearest ability to serve as a claim of fact. That is that abortion has a substantially negative effect on women. It has a negative physical effect. It has a negative emotional effect. And that probably would have been the way to structure the speech to make it work as a claim of fact. The first point on the argument, you're taking some presumptions here about the facts, and I don't think that there's any dispute on a couple of points that you're talking about, that it's human, that it's alive. The biggest issue is, the question of, whether it's an individual human person. There's another question, though, and that is whether or not it has rights, and you're equating it with murder, and there are lots of times when lives are taken and it's not considered murder. Self-defense, war, death penalty, all those kinds of things. And I'm sure that somebody who is defending abortion would argue that this is one of those events that fits into this particular category. Now, there could be an argument about whether or not it does fit into that category. That's where your argument ought to be. But that's not where, you kind of just make it a presupposition that once it's in this category here, then we're done with it. We don't have to go any further. We know it's, you've crossed this particular line. And again, that's a value claim. So I think that you've got a little bit of a problem there. There might be some dispute, for instance, in Christian theology as to whether or not it is a life and ought to be protected. And I think you have some evidence here that suggests from that point of view that it ought to be something that fits that particular criteria. But I'm not sure that that's where the controversy is on this issue. And as proof, I think that you're going to find that not everybody's going to share your acceptance of the testimony of the Bible as a form of proof, except from a theological point of view as opposed to a political or a scientific or a social point of view. And I think that that's something that you need to consider. That's why I think that you'd be better off sticking with that second point where you're clearly dealing with the factual issues. Now, presentation issues, if I'm just listening to your voice, for the most part, you're doing a very good job. I can hear you. There's good variety. There are a couple of places where there's some awkward pauses, but it wasn't really too problematic. Watching you, though, you have very little eye contact. Even though you're doing a lot of reading, you're doing a good job with your voice, but contact with the audience, I think, is a little bit limited. And then you've got your hand in your pocket. You look like you're defensive from the very beginning, and that's just, you feel a little disengaged when you do that. So you want to be careful about those kinds of things. All right, thank you.